at Podcast Movement, I had a phone call with my wife, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I mean, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what clothes to wear. I don't know how to interact. Like, I'm used to technical conferences, and from what I've seen just in the pre-event, the diversity is awesome. I love the diversity, and it's the right place, and it's incredible, but it's also very, very intimidating.
You're listening to Stand Out, Get Noticed, the show that helps you communicate with confidence so you can stand out from the crowd and get noticed by all the right people. If you want to be a person of influence and achieve success in business and in life, this podcast is for you. To subscribe to the show, go to thecmethod.com. Chad Bostick was a shy, introverted programmer who, at a very young age, discovered he loved talking to computers way more than talking to people. But as an adult, he realised that avoiding social interactions was not going to help him live a happy, fulfilled life. How did he overcome his shyness and build up his self-confidence to eventually meet the woman of his dreams, get promoted at work, and start a 7-day-a-week interview-based podcast? Find out in this episode of Stand Out, Get Noticed. Hi there, Rockstar. My name is Christina Canters, and I am the host of this show, and this is episode 70. I'm so excited to be introducing you to Chad Bostick. If you listened to episode 69, you may have heard him share his story on how role-playing on Dungeons & Dragons helped him to build his confidence as a podcaster. It's a great story. Go to thecmethod.com/podcasters for that episode. Now, after Chad told me that story, I asked him immediately if he would be a guest on my show because he is an amazing example of someone who has learned to communicate better. If you're a techie person and you're thinking, I'm just shy, that's just the way I am, I'm an introvert, you need to listen to this episode. You can also listen to Chad's podcast called Hello Tech Pros at hellotechpros.com. I found Chad's story very, very inspiring, and it taught me a lot about how introverted people think. So even if you're not an introvert, listen to this. It'll help you to hopefully communicate better with introverted people. And you can find the show notes for this episode as well as how to connect with Chad at thecmethod.com/Chad. Also, if you find yourself struggling with having conversations, be sure to join my free Small Talk Made Simple class. It's a free email class. You receive 1 lesson a day for 10 days, and each lesson contains a simple, easy to implement challenge that will help you to be more confident and effective when approaching people, having conversations, and talking about yourself without sounding like an arrogant douche. So go to thecmethod.com and sign up. Okay, are you ready to meet Chad? Let's go.
When I was 10 years old, I got a home computer, and it was called a TI 994A. And on that computer, there were no hard drives, there were no disk drives, there were no any kind of drives. There was a little cartridge, but I didn't have any cartridges to plug in. And so when you turned it on, it didn't do anything but say the number 10 and then a blinking cursor, and that was it. It literally did nothing. And but with the computer came a stack of it's called Home Computing or Personal Computing, something like that magazine. And in the back of every episode of the magazine were these type-in programs that would basically teach you how to write software. And I started doing that at the age of 10, and over 10 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old, I got really, really good at software development, just kind of on my own, just tinkering around with my home computer. And in that same period of my life, I realized that talking to computers for me was very, very natural. It was very easy. It was very logical. If this, then that. I input this, output that. And it was very prescriptive, right? I knew that if it didn't do what I wanted to, I could always kind of think about what I'm doing. What's the outcome that I want to achieve, and then change the code, and then everything would be perfect. But dealing with people was exact opposite. Like
It's not very predictable, is it?
No, it's not very predictive. And it was very uncomfortable for me because I felt like even as a kid, as 10, 12 years old, that I could not relate to other people. Like the things that I thought in my head, these fantasy worlds that I had going on, people didn't have. The family dynamics were, everybody's got their own weird families and stuff like that, but just, I just felt different and out of place, and everybody feels that way, but I felt bad about that, bad about myself, like there was something wrong with me.
Was there a specific moment when you had this realization?
I don't think so. I mean, there was around 12 or 13 when I moved from East Texas in a little bitty, small, tiny little community of about 5,000 people in the whole town. And I didn't even live in the town. I live way out in the country, and I had to be bussed in about 45 minutes to get to the town, to get to the big city of 5,000 people, right? And then we moved to Oklahoma City, which is still, compared to Miami, New York, Los Angeles, it's still a small area. But for me, it was a huge city, and I graduated with 1,000 people in my graduating class, and that was just completely overwhelming. And so, to go from a country boy out in the woods that literally had 5 or 10 people in the class that I could talk to now being surrounded by thousands of kids all day, every day, was overwhelming, given my personality. And then I didn't realize it at the time, but I was doing myself a disservice by not trying to fit in, not trying to, socialize. I just kind of was completely overwhelmed during that time, in 6th or 7th grade, and just, became the kid who sat in the corner of the room, at the back of the room, and just started observing people. And I continued that habit from around 12 years old till, 30 something years old, where I've always been the guy who just kind of sat in the corner of the room, no matter how much the party's raging, and just watched the party happening around me, regardless of if that's a technology conference where I'm very comfortable with the subject matter, or if that's a family reunion. I used to go to family reunions and see aunts and cousins and uncles and grandparents that I haven't seen in a year, and stand in the corner and watch everybody else hug and kiss and chat and tell stories, because I was so uncomfortable with talking to them because I didn't know them.
Okay.
That sounds ridiculous, right? But it's the way I was, and I don't know why, but that's the way I've always been.
And what were the things running through your head? Like, apart from, I don't know them, what was the thought or thoughts running through your head that really held you back from going up and speaking to new people?
There's this fear that they're going to judge you, that people are going to not understand you. I was very self-conscious about any little thing, right? Just like the way my shirt was tucked in or not tucked in, the way my hair was I had a few little hairs standing up, and just like, oh, people are going to think I'm a dork, I'm a loser, and then when I start talking, I would stutter or stammer or have, this nervous quality about my voice that would come out. I would hear it, and it would come out not the way it sounds in my head, but it sounded different when I would say it. And then I would get extremely self-conscious about that. And I just thought everybody else was judging me and thinking I was some kind of loser or whatever. There was that. And there's also, I don't know how to describe it, but I have this tendency to overanalyze everything. And if you've ever seen The Matrix, I think it was The Matrix #3, where Neo is talking to the architect, and he's looking at all the different televisions where there is a scene of him and the same person having this conversation because they've had it 100 times throughout history. But it's all different variations, right? He's getting angry, he's getting sad, he's getting, whatever. That happens in my head. This sounds weird, but that happens in my head all the time. And when I'm sitting here having a conversation, it's not so much anymore, but especially when I was younger, I would pretend conversations like you and I would be having this conversation when I was 10 or 15. And I would be trying to think like chess, like 5 or 6 steps ahead of, okay, I'm going to say this, and then she's going to say that, and then I'm going to respond with this, and then she's going to respond to that. But then, as a software geek, I know that there's probably multiple variations of what could happen. So I could say this or this or that, and I could use this inflection or that inflection. And so all these thoughts are going on, and instead of my voice, my language coming out naturally and flowing and just kind of in the moment, it would come out very hesitant. It would come out choppy. And I would say that a very, very choppy language. And I don't know, it was just very awkward. And so I was very self-conscious about that. But I didn't really understand that I could fix it. I could change it. I could do things differently, or that, dude, just freaking relax. Like nobody cares. It's all good. It doesn't matter, if you stutter or stammer or have weird voice or inflections, or if you think weird thoughts, or if you watch dorky movies that nobody else likes, who cares? Big deal.
Absolutely. But the thing is, it is inherent in your personality type, though, as a very analytical person who loves computers, who loves being able to predict an end result or know that you're going to get this end result if you do X, Y, Z. And I can totally see how that you would try and apply that to conversations and social interactions, which are way on the other side. Like, there's no way you can predict what someone else is going to say. So I totally get that that's your personality type to analyze things. And that is a strength in itself, but it's not a strength when you're speaking to people. And likewise, I did a coding class when I was in architecture school. We were doing parametric modeling of building facades, and you'd have to put the code in, write the code, and then generate it, and then see what pattern or what the building facade would look like and how it would respond to light and all of that. It was the worst subject I'd ever done, and the most frustrating, painful thing I ever had to do when I was in architecture school, because I found that with coding, if you have one little letter or a comma or a dash in the wrong place, it completely messes up your code and nothing works. It doesn't half work. It just fails. And for me, I could not understand. I was like, but it's almost right. Like it's almost right. Like, why doesn't it work? And it frustrated the crap out of me. And I've since learned that I am not a details person. I'm happy not knowing what the end result is. I'm happy to give it a go and see what happens, which is the complete opposite of most technical people like yourself, who are like, no, I'd much rather be able to know what result I'm getting. So, Chad, I wanted to ask you, at what point did you realize that you could actually learn and improve and relax and become less awkward in social situations?
Well, it wasn't that I could, it was that I had to.
Right.
Like, when I got to the point where I was about 26 years old, 27 years old. I think I was about 26. And I was extremely depressed because I literally had no people in my life. Like, I had my computers. I had been working at a .com company, and that was right at the end of the 99, the bubble, 99, 2000, 2001, the bubble had crashed, and the company was going downhill. And I said, you know what, I can do this. The first time I was like super, super confident was also the kind of the downfall of everything around me, because I was super confident, and I walked out of the building. I said, you know what, I quit. They're like, oh no, you need to stick around for severance. I'm like, no, I'm done. Peace out, dude. I can do this. I can, all the code that I've written, you guys have exploited me. I can make a lot more money and be a lot more successful if I just do it on my own. And I was very proud of that confidence I had in myself to step up and do that. But then I didn't put myself in a situation where I had other people around. I went to my home, and I went to my home office, and I literally just sat there on the computer or on the internet all day, every day for months on end, and never had literally any interaction with people. I had a roommate, but he had an alternate work schedule. He would sleep all day and work all night. And then, just being the type of person I was, I didn't have friends around, didn't have people around. I wasn't dating. It was difficult. It was very, very difficult. And it came to the point where I can't remember where I was going or what I was doing, but I was in my car at night driving down the old country roads, going back to my house. And I had to pull over because I was just so broken down. And I thought, man, I got to make a change. Like, something has to give. I have I have to get more extroverts in my life. I have to get more people in my life, because this is just, it's lonely and it's pitiful, and I'm feeling sorry for myself, and I can't live like this. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to do anything drastic and stupid, right? But I want to do something positive and make a change, and I don't know how, but I'm going to start. And I started using technology to find girls. So I got on, Yahoo and Match.com and all the early dating sites back in the day, and used technology as an excuse to create introductions with people, kind of like I use Twitter and LinkedIn today to create introductions with people to be on my podcast. And and then once I started interacting with people and kind of like got over some of the insecurities, then I found, I could manage, I could cope, I could talk to like real life normal people who who didn't care anything about software. And
what were those first few face-to-face interactions like?
Well, it was this is going to sound horrible. I'm going to sound like a complete a-hole here, because it was awesome for me, because the people that I met were just so weird in their own little ways that I was like, whoa, you are nothing like your profile. Like you completely came off as something different. Or we would chat, on Messenger or something for a long time, and then meet face to face, and they're like, okay, this is not how they portray themselves, or this is not how I pictured it, or whatever. And then I realized that, everybody's got flaws. Everybody's got insecurities. Everybody's got something that they're trying to hide, or they're trying to correct, or they're trying to ignore, or something. And online, we can be anybody who we want to be. But I don't want to be, a superhero online and then a complete dweeb in real life. I want to like have a life and talk to people. And so I don't know, just that those first interactions made me realize that we're all human, and we're all different, and we're all quirky and crazy in our own little way. And you know what? My way's okay, and it's not that bad. And then there were so many horrible first dates over a period of a long time. By the time I met my wife through Match.com, it was like we both met each other. We're like, you seem pretty cool. What's your thing? She's like, yeah, you seem pretty cool too. Like, what's going on? There's got to be something. Like this conversation will end horribly. I know. Oh yeah, why will it end horribly? What kind of horrible dates have you had? And then we started sharing horrible dates and horrible interactions, and that was kind of our first date. And then we've been together for 13 years now. So
wow, congratulations!
Thank you.
And all because you decided to make that change and jump online. And if you had met her maybe on the very first date, maybe things wouldn't have worked out because you didn't have that experience or that confidence at the time.
Yeah, I acted completely different. I had this kind of stupid, full of myself swagger bravado back then. At that point, I was like, I'm a stud, man. I'm awesome. And
what was this from your very first date with the very first person, or was this
no,
over time?
Over time,
right?
I don't know. I kind of switched, and I went from I'm extremely introverted and shy and self-conscious to, I'm awesome.
So was that a decision that you made, or was that from the experience of these first dates and seeing how weird everyone was and realizing that it was okay to be you?
It was both.
Okay.
It was both. And it was a false sense of bravado, right? It was a kind of an overinflated sense of awesomeness on my part. And what I love about her is she continues to put me in my place, be like, no, buddy, you ain't all that. Listen, this is how the world works.
And how did that affect your confidence in your professional life?
So my wife has been absolutely amazing to kind of coach me and help me, because she's more of an extrovert. She's more of a people person, and she definitely has a million times more social skills than I'll ever have. But, we would have conversations of, I'm frustrated at work. This is happening. That's not happening. Nobody listens to me. And she's like, well, why not tell them this? Why not mention that? And I'm like, well, it sounds great when you say it, but when I say it, it comes out wrong. And so we would just kind of like role play at home, and she would give me some scenarios and, say this, say that. The technology, the stuff, you know your business, the industry that you're working in, but you're just not comfortable with talking about your ideas and pitching yourself. So just try to say this or that. And this was not a one-time thing. This was over, a 10-year career. And slowly things started changing. And I had a manager who tried to pull me into leadership, into a management position for 2.5 years before I finally said yes, and moved into a leadership position where it was just, you're not dealing with technology at that point. You're dealing with people problems and communication and prioritization and all those kind of things constantly. And I fell in love with it. It was absolutely amazing. It was one of the best things I've ever done professionally, because then it was not about the technology anymore. It was about the people. And I really, really love people. Like, I care so much. Like, I'm the servant leader who wants to help my employees, like, reach their highest potential, right? I'm the solution provider that really, really cares about the business user who's having trouble with the old technology and needs a new user interface, or needs something faster, better, or more powerful, or whatever, to get their job done. And so I can help people solve their problems by using both kind of the technical background that I have, but also the people skills that I'm learning or have learned over the last 10 years to get a team of other introverts or a team of other, technology people together to solve those problems.
That's amazing. So you don't do the technical work anymore. You're purely dealing with people.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of tinker still at home every now and then when I have time. But in the last 5 months, it's been really hard to have time when I'm doing a 7-day-a-week podcast. But yeah, once, I was in this position where once I told my boss, okay, you know what? I have seen you coach and mentor like 2 or 3 other people from an entry-level position or a senior-level position up into management, and they're like rocking and rolling. These guys are rock stars. They're doing amazing things, and they have so much respect around the company. Like, everybody wants to be on their team. Everybody wants to work with these guys. I want to be them. Can you teach me how to do that? He's like, absolutely, Chad, we can do that. And so I said, okay, I'm in. He said, great. So do you want to be well, I went and I started helping him, and I started being management, but I still kept my feet in the technology side, and I was still writing code and doing things. He's like, you know what? You're going to need to let go of that stuff, because I need you like full time in this leadership management position, which is like a full-time gig. You can't be writing code and doing the technical things at the same time. I said, yeah, but my heart's not really there yet. I want to learn, and I want to get there maybe over time, but really, I'm a technology person first, and I want to stay here. And he's like, okay, well, sooner or later, you're going to make a decision. And he was right. About 6 months later, I felt I was struggling with both positions because I didn't have enough time to get my technical work done during the day. So I was having to do that at night because I was in too many meetings and having too many discussions and doing so much strategic planning and so forth. So eventually I was like, you know what, I'm going to have to give this stuff up and just dive in to the people side, to the leadership side 100%. And once I did, I never looked back. And it was the best change for me personally ever, because I realized that the people side of it is much, much more fulfilling to me. Like you said, like when you're struggling with those technical problems that you described when you were taking that programming class, like figuring that out, there is a solution to that problem, right? And that would drive me crazy to walk away from it and just say, I don't want to deal with it, right? There is a right answer. Yeah. And it will work. And that, to my type of personality, that's very engaging, right? That's very comforting, because I know that once I find that one right answer, then the world is put in place, the world is right, and I can move on to the next problem. So it was really difficult to let go of the technology. But once I did, I found out that, you know what, people are even more interesting, because there's not just one right problem. Like you said before, there's lots of different solutions, and there's not just the surface problems, but there's really the underneath problems, right? What's really going on? And so when I'm looking at the productivity of my team is low right now. Well, some managers can come in and say, okay, we need to work more hours. That's the solution. Maybe not. Maybe I really need to talk to Michael, and I need to talk to Jeff, and I need to talk to Susan and see what's really going on. And you know what? Maybe Michael is really frustrated because something's going on at home, and Jeff is having a bad time because he's having health problems, and Susan just lost her dog and is just completely miserable and can't get anything done. And meanwhile, Christina is pissed off because none of these three people will talk to her because they're all introverts, and she doesn't know the status of her project, right? And so if I can come in and I can understand and be empathetic to these people and try to figure out what's going on in their personal life, what's going on in their career life, what's going on at work, and to help them, kind of overcome some of those issues and focus on whatever output we're paid to get done, then now I've just increased the productivity of the team by 3-fold, 4-fold, 5-fold. And I haven't written a line of code, and that's freaking awesome.
For someone who is in a technical position at work and they're thinking of perhaps moving over to that people leadership side of it, because from what I'm hearing from you is that there are incredible opportunities that exist for people who have tech backgrounds but can also speak with people and manage them. What's one thing that they can start doing that's going to help them in that transition or give them those sorts of opportunities?
Stop thinking about yourself. Stop thinking about the technology and start really focusing on the people around you, regardless of if you're given a title, if you're given a position, if you're given authority to do something or not, but just start being aware of what's going on around you with the other people in the organization, and start thinking about what can you do to help them solve their problems. And their problems may not necessarily be a technical problem. It may have something related to do with technology, but it may be a training opportunity. You might be able to coach and mentor someone. You might be able to just be a shoulder for someone to lean on when they're going through a tough time and say, you know what, I'm here for you. If you ever need to talk, like I can at least listen. I don't know that I can do anything, and I'm not going to try to solve your personal problems. But if you need to come in, we go get a cup of coffee or go into an office and shut the door and just have somebody to talk to. Like, be that person, be the person that's there for people when they're struggling. And then when you see two people that are struggling with each other, go talk to both of them, right? Be that intermediary, be that diplomatic person that can solve relationship issues between people, or at least bridge the gap in relationship issues between people. Once you do that, the promotions, the titles, the whatever you're looking for in your career, those leadership positions will come a lot faster and a lot easier, because you will start to be recognized as a person who can solve people problems. And that's what a leader is a person who can solve people issues. Love it.
Chad Bostick, thank you so much for joining me on the show this week. Hey, give us the real quick plug for your podcast.
So my podcast is called Hello Tech Pros. So Hello Technology Professionals, Hello Tech Pros. You can find it at all the places where you can find podcasts, as well as hellotechpros.com. And every day of the week, I publish a new episode. Monday is about motivation. Tuesday, productivity. Wednesday, leadership. Thursday, technology. Friday, people in communication. Saturday, entrepreneurship. And Sunday, being unplugged, which is work-life balance and everything that has nothing to do with work. Because in my experience, this whole podcast, what it's all about is not the technology. It's really about the people behind the technology, the people who use technology, and the relationships that we can create with each other. And I would love to have you as part of my new relationships. So join me on the show.
Big thanks to Chad Bostick of hellotechpros.com for being so generous and open and being willing to share his story with us. It's not the easiest thing to do. Again, go to hellotechpros.com to listen to his show. Now, if you keep an eye out for episodes 117 of Hello Tech Pros, he actually interviews me on the topic of being confident when you communicate. So check that out if you want to hear more of me, I guess. So now that you know that you can build your confidence as an introvert, all you need now is some guidance to get you started. And that's where my free Small Talk Made Simple class comes in. So to get started, go to thecmethod.com and sign up for this free 10-day class today. Alrighty, and that's all from me this week. I hope you found this episode interesting and useful. I'll see you next week for another episode. Keep on being awesome. My name's Christina Canters, and this has been Stand Out, Get Noticed.
You talked about that with all the other podcasters that you interviewed at PM16, right? I listened to that show yesterday. It was just really cool hearing everybody's perspective. And I could definitely resonate with a lot of what they were saying, which is, first of all, just do it, right? You're going to suck at the beginning and realize that. And so once you do it, yeah, you're going to suck a little bit less tomorrow. And then over the course of 100 episodes, you're going to not suck near as much as you did before, And so part of this daily show is I have to practice talking to people. And that practice of going through it daily or multiple times every day is helping me. And so the podcast is not about, technology. It's really about connecting to people with technology as the common underlying factor in between. But really, if you go back kind of the history of it and do a little research, it's really the evolution of Chad. It's really about me changing as a person.